days after, so I thought I'd record me, so it makes it all fair. Yeah, recorded. Okay, so, good morning everyone. My name's Suzanne Evans, and I'm going to be giving you a short presentation today. But first of all, before I begin, I've got a question. I want you to think about, what do you think all of these things have in common? So telephone, television, antibiotics, pills, medicine, stamp, tarmac on the road, and a bicycle. Any ideas? What do these things have in common?
About relating to in a country and place.
Okay. And to a convenient place. Okay. Good idea. Anything else?
Invention.
Inventions. Okay. Good. Yes. Inventions. Anything else about inventions? They're all inventions. Important inventions. Maybe. Yes. Good. Yeah. They're all important inventions. And interestingly, they were all invented by Scotsmen. So that is people from Scotland. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is talk to you about Scotland, give you some information about this small country that not many people know about, and tell you a bit more about those inventions. Okay, so I've divided my presentation into three main parts. Firstly, some facts and statistics about the geography, the politics, and the people. Secondly, a typical Scotsman. So what does he wear? What does he do? And thirdly, those famous Scottish inventions. I'll tell you a bit more about them. So hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll know a bit more about Scotland. So, first of all, let's look at the location. So where is Scotland? So if we have here a map of the world, okay, and Scotland is in Europe, in the north of Europe, northeast of Europe, off the coast of France, in the north of England. This country here, this is Scotland. So Scotland forms part of the United Kingdom. And we can tell that from the map, but we can also see that from the flag. This is the flag of the United Kingdom, of Great Britain, and this is the flag of Scotland. And Scotland forms the back of the map, of the flag, sorry. The blue background and the white cross is Scotland. The white background and the red cross is England, and the white background with the red diagonal cross is Ireland. So it shows that flag represents all the countries. So, let's have a look now at a bit more of the geography of the country. The size of the country is just under 79,000 square kilometres. Quite a small country with a population of just over 5.1 million people. So it has a population density of 64 people per square kilometre. So that's not very many. Not many people live in this country. When you compare it to England, where we've got 226 people per square kilometre. So not many people live there. And I'll show you why that is in a moment. The main languages in Scotland are English, and some people speak Gaelic, but not very many. Just about 2% of the population speak Gaelic, which is the traditional Scottish language. And these people live mainly in the Highlands, the very north of Scotland, and the islands around here. Interesting, Scotland is this land, but also it has 800 islands around it, and 170 of those are inhabited. So people live on 170 of those islands around it. As you'll see in a moment on the next picture, a lot of the land is not populated. Most people live in cities. And so the two largest cities are Glasgow and Edinburgh. And Edinburgh is the capital. We've got about 550,000 people in Glasgow and about 450,000 in Edinburgh. So although Glasgow is bigger, Edinburgh is the more important and is the capital and political centre. So that's some basic facts about Scotland. And now I'll just move on and talk about the population in a bit more detail. So we say that there's about 5.1 million people live in Scotland, and 88% of those are white Scottish. So they were born there and they still live there. They haven't moved. They're white Scottish people. Another 10% are white British or European, and then just 2% a minority ethnic population, so from other countries. Just 2%, which is just 321,000 people. So not very many, and they mainly live in Glasgow. The biggest group is Pakistanis, where there's 32,000 people. Yeah, there's also some Chinese. There you go, there's 16,000 Chinese people, and some other very small minorities. But the vast majority of the people are white Scottish people. Okay, so the country itself, why do all the people live in those highest mountain is Ben Nevis, which is about 1,300 metres high. Then lots of lakes, or as Scottish people call them, lochs. So in Scotland you don't see lakes, you see a loch. And lots of valleys, so the other side of the mountain. So it's quite spectacular. So it's very popular with tourists. But the cities are also popular with tourists. This is a picture of Edinburgh. And Edinburgh was built in the 1700s, 1800s, so 200, 300 years ago. And the buildings are still there from that time. So it's very interesting architecture, very old, very grand buildings. So as we said, Edinburgh is the capital, the political capital. So if we move on now, and let's look at some Scottish politics. So Scotland, although it's joined to the United Kingdom, it is a separate country. And Scotland became independent from England in 1997, when 74% of the people voted to become separate. The Scottish people don't like the English people very much. The English people like the Scottish people, but the Scottish people don't like the English people. So they wanted to be separate. So now in Scotland, in Edinburgh, there is a parliament in Edinburgh. This is the outside of it, and inside where they make their own laws for their own country. They make decisions mainly about these areas, so about health, education, transport and housing. These areas are made, laws about these areas are made here in this parliament. However, other areas like defence, foreign affairs are still made, those decisions are made in London. So it's not fully independent, it still has some links with England. The decisions are made in London. But there is a difference. For example, in England, students have to pay to go to university. They have to pay a fee, whereas in Scotland, Scottish people can go to university for free. So it's quite a good thing. And in health, in Britain, if we go to the doctor and the doctor gives us some medicine, we have to pay for that medicine. In Scotland, they get that free. So there are some good things about being a Scottish person, some differences. Okay, so having spoken about the basic facts and statistics, I'm now going to move on and talk about a traditional Scotsman. So imagine you've seen a picture of a traditional Scotsman before. Yes, so this is what he looks like. And as you see, he's wearing a skirt, but because he's a man, he calls it a kilt. Yes, not a skirt, okay? And he has a handbag. He has a handbag, but it's called a sporran. This is where he keeps his money, his mobile phone today, I suppose, and all his important belongings. He wears a white shirt with a tie and a black short jacket. And he wears long socks with a dagger in the socks and some black shoes, And these boys under here, they're looking up his kilt and they're laughing. Why? Because a true Scotsman wears nothing under his kilt. So no pants, there's nothing there. It could be quite cold, I think, for him. But one good thing about this material is that it is very thick. This material is called tartan, and it's a very thick material, so maybe that keeps him warm. But there you go. So if you're in Scotland, don't lift a man's kilt up, you get a shock. Alright. So tartan is a very traditional Scottish material, and there are lots of different varieties, over 700 varieties and patterns of tartan. And each one has a name, and they're named after families in Scotland. So if your surname is Campbell, you would have this type of tartan, and you would wear a kilt made of this tartan. So in the 1700s, 1800s, you could tell where a person was from because of the dress, the coloured tartan they wore. Today, people don't really wear this every day. They wear it at weddings or christenings or formal occasions, so you can't really tell where anyone's from anymore. But if you go to Edinburgh, you will see some people usually dressed in the kilt, and usually playing this instrument here, which is called the bagpipes. I don't know if any of you have heard that. I've got a clip in a moment. Okay, so that's what the Scotsman wears. And what a traditional Scotsman does is, in the summer, they have a big festival, big Highland Games, where they play lots of different sports, a bit different to in England. This is called Scottish dancing, or Cayley, when they wear the traditional kilt. And they also do some very manly sports, and ones that you need a lot of strength for. So some of these games are like a hammer, throwing a hammer, which weighs about 9 kilograms, or throwing a weight over a bar, which weighs about 30 kilos. Fighting, tossing the caber. And it's throwing a very, very long pole made of wood, about 60 metres high, and then 6 metres high, and they throw that up very high and toss it over. And hopefully, if the computer works, I've got a clip of somebody tossing the caber. The weekend is they throw a big caber like that. You have to be very strong to do that with lots of balance. And the music you heard there was the bagpipes, that instrument we saw before. Okay, the bagpipes, that was the music you heard. Some people like it, some people don't. I should let you mind your mind up. Okay, so that's a traditional Scotsman and what he does in Highland Games. So lastly, in the third part of my presentation, we'll talk about those Scottish inventions again. So, because a small country like this, just 5 million people in the very north of Europe, but what inventions we have brought to the world. So, communication, the stamp. Yeah, the stamp was invented in 1837 by Scott James. The telephone. Who has a mobile phone? Yeah, the mobile phone was invented by, the telephone was invented by a Scotsman called Alexander Graham Bell in 1876. And interestingly, he invented the telephone, but he didn't want one in his study. He thought it was an intrusion. He didn't like people phoning him. So although he invented it, he didn't like it. But everyone has a phone today. The television, invented in 1925 by John Logie Baird, a Scotsman. Penicillin, antibiotics. If you go to the doctors, they often give you antibiotics pills. These were invented in 1928, were discovered by Alexander Fleming. The bicycle, the first bicycle, any idea when that was invented? In 1839, and again by a Scotsman, Kirkpatrick. And the last one, this road, you've seen all the roads in Britain, don't know about in your countries, but they're made of this black substance called tarmac, and that was invented by another Scotsman who built roads, and he was called John McAdam, and it became known as tarmac. Okay, so that brings me to the end of my presentation about Scotland, and hopefully I've given you some basic facts about this small country. I've given you some information about the political and the geographical structure of the country, and also made you aware that although it's a small country, it's had a big impact on the world and on modern technology and the modern world today. So next time, maybe you plan a trip, you might go to Scotland and you think about what Scotland has brought. Okay, so there are my references, and any questions?
Why did you choose Scotland to do your presentation?
Oh, okay, interesting question. I like Scotland. I went to university in Scotland, and I think it's a country maybe you don't know very much about. So that's why. I don't know. Did you? Okay, good. Okay, thank you very much. Right.